Take it away, Zap people.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I probably look familiar. Jill Wiedrich. I work in the zoning office, and I have my colleague, Doreen Kirkmeyer, who is the manager of planning. We're here to chat again during the first half of your pre-meeting about the zoning alignment project. So I'm going to bring up a PowerPoint. Again, this is a continuing conversation that we're having, and acknowledging that there's just not a heck of a lot of time in pre-meeting. We have added an additional meeting. So that will occur on May 24th at 6 p.m. And let's get going.
And that information is on the project website.
Okay. All right, because I know everyone is playing Zoom meeting bingo. Can everybody see the screen? All right, perfect. And let me just hide this for a second. Okay, what's new? We realize that the pre-meeting format, as I mentioned, really is not sufficient time for us to go through everything, particularly the status report. The status report, which can be found on the website, has a lot of information. We want to make sure that we have a good discussion with you. So we will continue the remainder of the briefing at a special meeting on May 24th, and this will happen at 6 p.m. Tonight, as noticed in the status report, we're going to have a discussion of uses. We will introduce some highlights related to regulating uses and continue to the discussion at the upcoming special meeting. So again, this is basically the intro. We're going to have a lot of conversation about the items in the document. I want to direct your attention again to the Rochester Zoning Alignment Project website. So it's www.rochesterzap.com. There's a section here for frequently asked questions. There's a comment portal. All the documents and presentations thus far are found on this website, and we include project updates. There's even a chance for a subscription opportunity. So there's a lot of stuff on this website. It's really great. It's really impressive. I'm so glad we have this. Also, a reminder, the status report, which is a lengthy document, is found on the website. That was posted on March 31st of 2021. And an overview began at the CPC pre-meeting on April 12th. And again, this is a continuation of the conversation. We want to make sure that we're discussing a lot of things that are going to help give us a little bit of direction. The three things that I want you to remember about the zoning code update, and these are key, is there are overarching goals that really clarify and direct us into how we want the zoning code update to flow and how we want the zoning code to work in the future. And this is all in response to Rochester 2034. So we're talking about housing diversity. How do we make sure that there are plenty of housing options for everybody that wants to live in the city? Zoning for jobs. So we want lots of diversity for housing, but lots of diversity for jobs. So we want people to be able to feel that they can come up with that great idea and have it be planted in the city and then ultimately bloom. And we're also talking about sustainability. How do we make sure that the things that we are doing ensure a healthy, vibrant future by the time we get to 2034? One of the big things that we're doing, and this is actually super exciting to me, I'm thrilled about this, is we're proposing a new format to regulate uses. We're looking at having all districts and all uses in one table. So here's an example of that. So a developer, a resident, can go to the table and say, okay, I want to do a home occupation. Where is this allowed? Or I want to do a daycare home. Where is this allowed? This is really the direction that many zoning codes have gone. And I think it makes it a lot easier, not only for staff to use, but also for the public. So we're really looking forward to using something like this. We're also going to the term of all commercial uses indoors. Now, I think everyone's familiar that we list out a number of uses and we say this and we say that. And zoning codes really need to be dynamic documents that are able to capture all the possible uses as quickly as possible. We don't want to make somebody that's got this great idea wait just so that we can get it added into the allowable uses. So it uniformly regulates uses with same or similar impacts. It provides inclusion for emergent uses. Again, if somebody has this great idea, we know a lot in 2021, but I bet there's going to be a whole plethora of uses that we didn't imagine by the time we get to 2025. Incorporates some principles of form-based approach. So with a form-based approach, what you're looking to do is really regulate how the building looks, how it functions, but not so much that use that's in that building. And it also will seek to simplify the regulatory process. So if at the permit counter, we can say, oh, all commercial uses indoors are allowed in this particular area, that makes it really easy for the entire process for that applicant.
Jill, could I jump in here real quick?
Sure.
So I did want to share a story of when I was in the zoning office, and I remember when the first hookah lounge was proposed, and we really had no idea what to do with a hookah lounge. So we kind of had to look at it in terms of how it operates, what are its impacts, and how does it interface with outside? How does it interface with people in the adjacent properties or people on a sidewalk or whatever? And so it occurred to us when we were rewriting the code and we're trying to rethink uses that, we should be thinking more in terms of how a use impacts a community or how it impacts outside, outside the walls of the use, because that's really what people are concerned about and how people are impacted. So that's why we decided to let's not just get caught up in listing out every possible use that we could possibly have inside a building. Rather, let's focus on what the impacts are of particular uses and focus on the outdoor component of those uses. So the parking or outdoor seating or potential, queuing outside or whatever. That's the kind of thing we really want to regulate, not what's happening inside the building. And so that's kind of how we got to this point, and really relying on, occupancy as the building code, regulates. And so I just kind of want to share with you, how we're not saying that we're not going to regulate bars and restaurants any different than we're going to regulate stores. What we're going to do is regulate the impacts caused on the outside of the building of a bar or restaurant. So that's where we're going with this.
Mm-hmm. So some other highlights that we're talking about here, we're looking to make the zoning code definitions consistent as close as possible to New York State Building Code. So for example, dwelling unit, boarding house versus rooming house, sleeping unit versus rooming unit. This will make things so much easier for staff, not only on the zoning side, but also on the plan review side. It also makes it so much more predictable for design professionals. The New York State Building Code is uniform throughout the state. And so design professionals, if they're working in one municipality, are familiar with the New York State Building Code. There's very little change. It will make it so much easier for design professionals if the New York State Building Code and our city zoning code have a little bit more consistency with definitions. We're also looking to allow more options for reuse of existing commercial and mixed-use buildings in residential districts. I think everybody can talk about their neighborhood and say, all right, well, I live in a residential district, but at the corner, there's an existing commercial building. And now it's a little bit challenging to reuse that building. We're looking to make it a little bit easier. We're looking to make sure that there's emergency and supportive housing options, and these will be updated to reflect the industry changes. So community home and hospice residents will be introduced. We're changing the definition of hotel to now include non-owner occupied short-term rental units. So this is a bit of a change for us. We're breaking manufacturing up into light and heavy industrial to encourage job-producing light industrial uses in more areas of the city. So I think we can all agree that there are some uses that clearly are heavy industrial, and we wouldn't want to see them in near any maybe residential use. And then there's others that are clearly light that can coexist with residential uses. We're also looking to expand and create more opportunities for establishing a boarding house and owner-occupied homes with the intent to produce additional affordable housing options and for income generation for homeowners. So these are things that are not currently captured in the code, but are discussed on some level in Rochester 2034. And again, the point of updating the zoning code is to make sure that the zoning code, which is the regulatory document, is in compliance with Rochester 2034, which is a document that basically told us what we want to be when we grow up. So let me just move this because I'm moving things all over my screen here. So some of the things that we'd like to discuss a little bit, and this is, again, we're going to continue the conversation on May 24th. What do you think about the code format and the organization? We'd like a little bit more information about what you're thinking about the use direction that we're going. So what are your thoughts on all indoor commercial uses? Is that an approach that you think will work? What are your thoughts on regulating the restaurant versus non-restaurant drive-throughs? We also are looking to get some information for the proposed direction for district dimensional standards. Is it okay to deregulate the minimum lot size and rely only on a contextually driven requirement for street frontage? Offering additional building height in exchange for design that exceeds the code requirements? These are some things that we've been kicking around that we really need your help with. The minimum parking requirements and the transportation access plan. Are the TAP thresholds reasonable that we've created, and is the list complete? Now, the City Planning Commission has historically dealt with alternative parking plans, so you guys have a really good grasp on how this works. The sign regulations, oh, go ahead.
TAP thresholds, they are in the status report. So this information that you see, these questions, they're all drawn from the status report that you already have. We just kind of wanted to trigger some thoughts for you as you reread that status report in preparation for the May 24th discussion. Sorry, Jill.
That's okay. The sign regulations moving forward are going to be less rigid. We can tell you this with certainty. And so we're wondering, should we be moving to administrative approval process for the alternative sign proposals? So again, historically, the City Planning Commission has approval authority over the alternative sign programs. Is that something that you think should be administrative? And then obviously, we're looking for any other thoughts and concerns that you might have. The document has a lot of information in it. And if there's something in there that we haven't covered today in these questions, please bring it up. We need your feedback.
And generally, the status report does not cover everything, and there's still a lot of work that we're doing. I mean, we still have to write the code, and those code provisions are going to be provided to the Planning Commission, probably this fall is when we're thinking, and they'll be released to the public at the same time. So this is really more about, are we on the right track as we write the code, as Jill said? And, specifics aren't really going to be something we're going to talk a lot about at this point, but we really want you to understand the direction we're taking in some of these topics and make sure that you agree with those or don't agree, and understand why you wouldn't agree and what your comments are. We want to make sure that there's, that the Planning Commission really steers this process. And so in order for you to steer it, we need to have a back and forth conversation, and these pre-meetings aren't giving us that opportunity. So on on May 24th, we're hoping to have a lot more dialogue going back and forth with Planning Commission members to really talk about what's in the status report and really challenge us. I really want you guys to challenge us at that meeting.
So as Doreen mentioned, the next meeting will be May 24th at 6 p.m. And again, that'll be the opportunity for City Planning Commission and city staff to have a conversation about what's in the document. The meeting following that will be June 28th, and that's the City Planning Commission informational meeting. And that's the opportunity for the public to call in and give us comment. And I say call in, probably that's the wrong term. To link in with our Zoom webinar and to participate. We're also looking to do public workshops to review the draft code and the draft map. And this is, again, fall 2021. It's tentative. We're hoping that we'll be able to meet in person. And so that we're still sort of fleshing that out to see what we'll be able to do.
It looks like somebody's lost audio.
Yeah.
Can others hear us? Oh, phew.
So with that, we have a couple minutes because we don't want to take all of your time, but is there anything that's triggering for you right now that you'd like to have a conversation about, or something that you'd like us to look into for the May 24th meeting?
In advance of the meeting, Jill?
Yep.
Then with some of the Q&As you were listing, I was just jotting down some notes. Is it safe to assume that on the 24th, questions like, or requests for clarification on the hotel adjustment and the definition of that to get a little bit more of your thinking. Is that specifically on Airbnb? And like, just to hear more detail, is that like an appropriate time for those questions?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. So that's what we want you to do. If there's something in that report that you're like, hey, this might work, but I'm not entirely sure, that's the time to ask that question.
And that's
Go
a
ahead.
question, the hotel question. We were working, our committee was working yesterday, because the Airbnb type of, that short-term rental came up in the comprehensive plan process. That came up as a concern from the community quite a bit. And so we wanted to address it, and we were trying to address it as its own use. And then we figured out just this week as we were working through this, or no, I guess it was last week, that maybe a short-term rental that is not owner occupied, that doesn't have anyone living in the house, so it's completely turned over to a commercial use. Maybe it should be regulated as a hotel and not as a short-term rental. Because people can do short-term rentals in their own owner-occupied homes. There's a special event in town and they decide to go visit grandma and let the whole house be rented for someone for that week. That kind of thing is different than a house that's completely unoccupied except for visitors and tourists and renters. So in that respect, we thought it really operates more as a hotel than as a short-term rental, Airbnb type, maybe that's owner occupied most of the year. So we've decided to distinguish that. And so that is something that literally just evolved over the last few days. So I appreciate that question. And that brings to light this fact that this is such a process that's constantly evolving. And we're trying to do our best. And then even as we move forward, we see ourselves coming up against something. We're like, oh man, that doesn't really, we're not really covering that in the definitions that well, the way we meant to. And so we're going back and changing things. So there may be stuff in the status report, even that's evolved since we wrote that in March. So, this is just one of the things we have to understand with a project like this, is that there's so much interconnection between different sections of the code, and how it looks over here kind of affects how it looks over here. And then when you're looking over here, and it may change what we did over here. So these things are constantly changing and evolving, and that's just the nature of the beast. And so, we're all, everybody's going to have to recognize that's happening. And until we have a draft code written and ready to go out to the community, things are going to be constantly changing. And so we can have these conversations, and it's great because it'll make us think about how we can still continue to evolve what we might have already been working on. So we can go outside the status. If something comes up, if there's an issue that comes up that's not even in the status report that you're just interested in and curious about how we might be handling it or thinking about it, bring that up too. If there's something you're hearing from your community, your neighbors, or you yourself have a question about it, or you've seen it come through the Planning Commission as an application in the past that you're wondering how we're going to handle that now, write that down and bring it up on the 24th, and we'll talk about it. And I'm not saying we'll have an answer for everything, but we will tell you what we've been doing so far and tell you how that might influence how we move forward. So please feel free. There's nothing that's off the table with respect to zoning at that May meeting. We can just have open conversation and dialogue about anything you're thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Marlin has a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, was it to me? Because I didn't raise my hand, but I do have a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you found any opportunity to address equity through zoning that was not captured in the comprehensive plan?
Interesting.
That's a good question.
I mean, I'll tell you, the comprehensive plan, equity is not only a guiding principle, but it's also woven into every section of the comprehensive plan. But in terms of actually how it might impact the zoning code, I would have to go back and kind of look and see what direction we were given and where we might be taking it even further in the zoning code that's not in the comprehensive plan. That's a good question. We'll look
Well,
into
I heard this once and I thought, oh gosh, that's sort of true. I've heard the argument that any municipality zoning code is the greatest tool of equity because it doesn't care about, it regulates by district, and the regulations are all for that district, regardless of the economic conditions, et cetera, et cetera. So it's everybody's treated, every property is treated this way. And so we've sort of taken that a step further because of the blessing of the comprehensive plan, because it did have such a focus on equity. And I think anytime you're integrating additional housing diversity and zoning for jobs and the thought of sustainability into a zoning code, that you are increasing the equity of that document. You know, you're looking at it through that lens. So I think at the end of the day, my hope is that the zoning code, people look at it and they say, gosh, that really matched up with what the comprehensive plan was looking to do. And this is a document that's going to get us to 2034 and help the city realize all its dreams.
Also, on the website, what is it, Zap? I forget.
RochesterZap.com.
Thank you. That there is a presentation on there that we prepared specifically around ZAP and equity. So if you haven't seen it, take a look at that, because that ties a little bit to, it definitely ties to 2034, but it's not as specific as you're talking about. So we'll look into that, but look, take a look at that presentation. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, and I am just suggesting that the intentionality of as you go through this thing, that you make sure that any opportunity, I mean, you don't want, not accidentally, but intentionally continue to ask the question, how does this affect, because the zoning is tied to economy and position and neighborhoods. And some people, it doesn't matter what the whole thing says in practicality, some people are left out. And unless we do it intentionally, then, we miss the boat.
I think what will have potentially the largest impact on having more equity in the city of Rochester is updating the zoning map. Because we have areas that are R1 that have been inappropriately zoned R1, that has limited any opportunity for economic development in those particular neighborhoods. And so I think that alone is going to make a huge impact. That, if you said to me, what are you most excited about? It's the changes in that zoning map. Mm-hmm. And we're able to further that because of the placemaking plan that goes along with Rochester 2034. And that looked at these areas and said, wait a second, why the heck is that R1? That's not supportive of the development that we're looking to see in those particular neighborhoods. Right. So that's what I'm most excited about. And I think that's going to really move the ball forward when we're looking to make things more equitable in the city and increase opportunities.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Jill, I just had this one question, or not question, a comment regarding the signage. I think that's something that I think could be appropriately managed at the departmental level, except with the exception of extraordinary larger sign. So you have a limit, you have up to X number of square feet per frontage. If you want something bigger than that, you have to come before CPC to do that. But I think that makes a lot of sense and eliminates a lot of extra work for the applicant or business in order to get what they need, what they want. If it's bigger, then they got to come. If it's less, then that's workable.
So let me pick your brain a little bit on that. Are you saying that for one particular sign you would have a size limit, or is it the sign package in total? So what if somebody came and said, I want to have 4 different signs, and it's, the sign total is, let's just say 8,000 square feet, which is ginormous. But so would it be, are you thinking for the entire sign package, so that if it was smaller, that's something that administratively could happen?
Yes, I would say that you would want to look at something that each location has the square footage of frontage or square footage of the property, then based on the square footage or the frontage, you say, okay, for every 10 feet of frontage, you can get a 20 square foot of signage.
Mm.
So you have an optimal limit. So you can go up to that. If you want something more than that, if you want to put 8 signs up, it can only be a total of that square footage.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
And maybe we give, maybe there's some variation to those requirements that's like you can go 15% or 10 or 15% over those requirements. Beyond that, you have to go to board approval, but up to that, you can get a degree of approval or something like that. It's kind of what I'm hearing you say too, is there's like a certain point at which it should go to community review.
Yeah.
But there's other times when it can stay at administrative review with maybe a public notification component or something. Right, and I think what that also does is that allows equity again. I think Mr. Marlin, that the equity is that regardless of what size your business is, it's equal to people who have the same size business. So nobody gets a bigger sign unless they get approved for something bigger. They want something less, that's okay too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that was all I had.
That may get a little bit more creativity as far as signage goes, because I often wonder, we'll get people at the permit counter and they'll have a design and we'll say, well, that doesn't meet the code, but you can go for an alternative sign program.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought of having to go to a board and, that's frightening to people. So perhaps we'd get more creative signage if it was an administrative process.
Mm-hmm. You can say you have, because the size of your building, you have 500 square feet of signage.
Mm-hmm.
And you design it the way the design.
Yeah, have at it.
And it fits in, and you're good to go.
Excellent. I like that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to take too much more time. Is there anything else anybody would like to chat with about? And don't forget, we'll continue this on the 24th.
And I would like to encourage you too, if there's something that you're thinking about, feel free to email us ahead of time so we can come to the meeting prepared to talk about it. And I just think that would be helpful for us too, to make it as efficient as possible.
Absolutely. Yep. That would be fantastic. And I know that there are more people out there listening to this presentation, and I want to remind the public to please comment at rochesterzap.com and provide us your feedback too. You will have an opportunity to join in on the webinar on June 28th at 6 p.m. And again, we will have another meeting with City Planning Commission on May 24th at 6 p.m. So as usual, thank you guys for being fantastic. And I really look forward to hearing the next conversation that's had. And as Doreen said, if you have anything that you'd like us to look into or questions that have popped into your head now that you'd like us to explore, please let us know ahead of time so we can be as most efficient as possible with the time that we have on the 24th.
Would you guys, I just thought of one other question. Sorry, Jill. Would you guys like it if we like brainstorm, kind of like we did the teasers there at the end? I mean, would it be helpful if we had some more questions to ask? Or would you like to come in and just have a free kind of discussion and conversation? Does anyone have a preference? How they want to see that happen?
I like prompts, and I find that it helps to steer in deeper ways or inspire thought versus coming in blank.
Yeah, I like the teasers too.
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
Okay, we'll prepare some of that. We'll add on to what we did on that little teaser slide and come in with some more ideas.
Yeah, and a reminder that all the presentations that we do are found on rochesterzap.com. So if tomorrow night at 11 o'clock at night, you're going, what did that presentation look like? What was that last page? It will be posted. So have a fantastic hearing, and we look forward to seeing you on the 24th.
Good, thank you so much. Thanks, Doreen.
I just want to confirm that we have Markibo with us. I know you were experiencing some technological difficulties.
Yes, I got in there finally. It's like 3 different headsets. So yeah, I'm in.
Thank you for persevering.
Yes. Okay.
All right, I'll start us off by just kind of going over each of the cases and making sure that we have all our ducks in a row and any questions are answered. The first one is case number 1. This is an amendment to the Market View Heights Urban Renewal Plan. This item is being held this evening I think the applicant or the project manager on this team wants to spend a little bit more time considering some more potential amendments to this plan. There may be some things that they're scheming. We'll see. So we're going to hold it until further notice, but it will be coming back at you with a little bit more robust detail and information.
Oh, will you be announcing that at the meeting?
Yep, I'll go ahead and announce it then there. So I'll just be repeating myself throughout the evening. The next case is a special permit at 235 Alexander Street. Everyone else except for Richard has heard this case. Wait, Kim, is this your first time hearing that? Okay. Everybody but Richard has already previously heard this case, but Richard's been provided with all that material. You all had some very specific matters that you wanted.
Richard, did you listen to the hearing tape from that hearing as well?
Hi. I didn't hear the hearing part yet. I didn't have time this afternoon. I did get through the deliberations discussion of it.
But so you didn't listen to the hearing
So
part?
I didn't hear their hearing
Okay.
part.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we have to be qualified to do it. You have to listen to the hearing part too.
Okay.
I'm sorry we didn't get it to you.
Well, that went on quite a
Sooner.
while there. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit that in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anna, should we take call the roll in terms of who's visited the site on these?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So Richard's not hearing this one then?
Right.
Okay. Who, by show of
right.
raised hands,
Sorry.
and thumbs up, who all was able to visit this site? Great, thank you. Okay, so included in the application is the hold letter, which addresses all of the kind of specific matters you wanted attention to, like removing spaces and reconfiguration. So all of that has been redesigned and kind of presented to you to see if it is achieving what you were looking for. Do you guys have any questions about what the new information that came through? Okay. The next one is 685 Glide Street. Was everyone able to visit that site? Great, thank you. Do you guys have any questions on this one?
I guess the question that I had is said that there was a I think I was trying to get my terminology correct. No, there's no enforcement on this one.
Not on the parking lot parcel, no.
Okay, I thought there was, but the other one, number 7, was there was an enforcement, I think.
Yeah, we have some. I think.
Yes, there's no case number 7.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
And this one we will be doing seeker, but we'll do seeker at deliberations.
Okay.
Mike, I've got one question on this one, which is basically, are we reviewing this in terms of parking for any bar, making it legitimate for whatever bar happens to be in there, or this particular one, which seems to not have a lot of community support?
The request is for an ancillary parking lot, and they're requesting certain waivers to the parking lot design.
So it's really just cut and dried in terms of should a bar in this location have parking?
The parking lot is proposed to serve the mixed use building adjacent to the parcel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of the type of use rather than the specific business.
Okay.
In this case, you're reviewing an ancillary parking lot that is, there's an adjacent parcel owned by the property owner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I mean, it sounds like a lot of their problems is really something the police department needs to deal with. So, okay, thank you.
Yep. The next one is 432 Chilai Ave. Was everyone able to make it out to the site by a show of hands or thumbs? Thank you. Any questions? Seeker will be conducted at deliberations. Next one is the RG&E project at Wyand Crescent and that little bit of Garson behind them. Any questions on this one?
I guess just a quick question. I guess historically, when we have projects like this, it's usually a pretty fixed location and they don't have a lot of variation that they can do as far as setbacks, side setbacks, and front setbacks, and those kinds of things. That being said, maybe just for future use, would that be something that might be able to either one be included as far as a basically by right, because they can't have any more space, they can't make their space bigger, but they also can't, reduce the size of their front setback and side setbacks, those kinds of things.
Are you talking about amending the code?
Potentially, or looking at as part of the application process to say, okay, your site is limited for side setback, front setbacks, those kinds of things, and we will basically administratively waive that.
Yeah, I think you're kind of in the
code.
zoning code amendment mode right now.
Okay.
So, yeah, whether in an ideal world we might do it differently, but for today we've got the code that we have.
Okay, understand. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Are there any, I just want to make sure that everyone here has like a firm grasp on the fences in particular, because with this project, there are a lot of specific requirements for substations on the whole. And so like, if you guys have anything that you might want to push back on, it might be more prudent to discuss that now while we have Tom Keiser with us, or even at the hearing itself before we get into deliberations, because the subject matter experts, we might want to rack their brain before we start like pulling apart these fences or any of those other.
Yeah, that's really important because they have specific requirements based on the use, both in terms of height, fence material. So if you kind of have any idea of maybe a condition in your head that you're thinking of, make sure you discuss that with them during the meeting, because it would be tough during deliberations because we wouldn't be able to go back and forth with them and discuss if those things are even possible.
Yeah.
And one more fence thing I wanted to add, your tables, once you get to fences and walls in the site plan findings, we usually just identify whether they're in compliance or not. And I don't think we specifically stated. So it shows you what's required and what's proposed. And those 3 items in the fence section will need waivers from you. We just didn't explicitly state that, but they do need those.
Do you guys need me to pull up the drawings or anything like that, or are you guys?
Well, yeah, I've had difficulty because I haven't been looking at them and zooming in a PDF, trying to figure out basically what fences are where. So I'm probably going to ask that of them to walk around. We've got existing landscaping along Wyand there, which is in its death throes, but they're not proposing anything new landscaping or anything along there. Is that something that can be an issue?
Mr. Keiser?
Yeah. I'm going to have to probably pull up a PDF separately and try to see what's going on.
I'm having connection issues, but I think your question is, are they replacing the landscaping? So they're proposing a similar landscaping, new landscaping along Wyand, but it would be good to ask them, make sure they explain that in more detail.
Well, I didn't see a separate landscape plan. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see I just saw the one thing, which is basically there are plants there now, so let's see that.
Yeah, I think that they were anticipating putting in like 20 trees along Wyand, I believe, if I read it correctly, next to the fence.
Okay, because there's stuff there now that's basically on its last legs.
Right.
Okay. All right.
But again, ask that, make sure that double check. Trust but
Yeah.
verify.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, these red circles are 32 emerald green arborvitae along Wyand. Yeah, or however I might be. I'm not from Rochester, so I don't have the alternate pronunciations down.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this one?
Nope.
Alrighty. That brings us to 235 North Winton Road. This is a parking demand analysis for a mixed-use development over there in the corner of North Winton and Blossom. Was everyone able to visit the site by a show of? Great, thank you.
And this is basically only for the parking analysis that has nothing to do with the building design, correct?
That's correct. Yep, it's going to the zoning board in a few days, actually, for more of those more technical details such as setbacks and what have you. Yep, we're just looking at the fact that they're 7 spaces over what the code requires them to be at for what the use is proposed.
Yeah, so like the zoning board will be looking at issues like drive-through and setbacks and.
Alrighty, if there are no other questions on that one, we'll go to the last case, which is number 7. So 673 Glide Street, which is the building adjacent to the parking lot. There's a bar restaurant at that building on the first floor space, and they have submitted an application for public entertainment. So public entertainment is like when you have bands and DJs perform, and there's a parking requirement that's half the occupancy load. They don't have any parking on site, so they are seeking an alternative parking plan for 33 spaces, which is half their occupancy load. So as part of their application, they provided an alternative parking plan, which does include 9 spaces at the adjacent parking lot. And we do have a copy of the lease agreement, which evidences that the landlord has agreed to do shared parking. But as you know, in addition to the comments that are already included into your staff reports, I believe there were 6 additional comments at this point. Was everyone able to visit the site? Okay, thanks.
I guess the question I had with the current enforcement, do we know what that is?
If you talk about something else real quick, I can find it.
Can we talk about you?
I do know that I do know that the neighborhood service center was one of the comments.
Yes.
So they've been working very closely with the business itself and some of the adjacent property owners.
If I remember correctly, that statement that we got from the center wasn't very specific about what their issues were, other than or why they were in enforcement.
It looks like the open violations for a broken window.
On the building?
Yep.
Interesting. All right. Thank you. I was just curious what it was.
Yep.
All right.
I have a quick question. Did you guys go over the Lewis Street one, or that one's off until next month or something?
It's going to be off. I don't know if it's coming back next month. I think it'll be a few months down the road. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Okay.
I guess we will see each other in 10 minutes then.
All right. Sounds good. So we'll see you in 10.